Welcome back, Bears fans. Grab a seat, take a deep breath, and let's talk. Because this is one of those moments where three separate stories hit my desk all at once, and every single one of them is a five-alarm fire for our community. Right now, we have massive drilling rigs digging into the dirt out in Hammond, Indiana, doing something that should make the stomach of every politician in Illinois absolutely drop. At the exact same time, inside Hollis Hall, there is a ticking contract clock on one of the most underpaid, high-upside defensive players in the entire National Football League. Yet, our front office is acting like they don't even hear the noise. And to top it all off, we have a dynamic wide receiver who might be sitting on the best-kept secret breakout season in the entire NFC, assuming his health cooperates and his offensive coordinator finally unleashes him the way he deserves. Stay with me through this entire breakdown, because by the time we finish, you are going to understand exactly where this historic franchise is heading. Both on the field and off of it. Trust me, these stories are deeply connected. Bear down. Let's get right into the heart of it. Let's start with the dirt. Literally, the earth beneath our feet. This past Saturday, heavy geotechnical drilling equipment rolled onto a massive piece of property called Wolf Lake Terminals over in Hammond, Indiana now. If you just saw a quick headline scrolling through your feed saying Bears testing new site, you might have bypassed it, thinking it was just more standard off-season rumors. Let me assure you, it is not rumors. This is one of the most concrete, physical, undeniable signals the Chicago Bears have sent in this entire agonizing stadium saga. And let's be completely honest, this stadium situation has been dragging on for so long it could practically apply for its own pension. Picture the setting. Wolf Lake Terminal sits just west of the Indiana Toll Road Interstate 90 right there in Hammond. This isn't just an empty, pristine field waiting for a developer's dream. It is an active, bustling industrial and logistics property operating right now today, filled with warehouses, storage facilities, and private businesses. And this past weekend, heavy drilling rigs backed onto that land. We aren't talking about architects with sketch pads or executives in polo shirts carrying clipboards. We are talking about actual, heavy-duty geotechnical drilling equipment. This is the precise machinery used to punch deep into the earth to test load-bearing capacity, groundwater levels, and bedrock strength. Why should this matter so much to you and me? Because this is the exact scientific test that tells engineers whether the ground can physically hold up a massive, multi-billion-dollar NFL stadium and everything that comes with it. The thousands of tons of steel, the concrete, the multi-level parking structures, and the massive mixed-use entertainment districts surrounding it. A franchise does not spend the immense time, effort, and money running these intrusive tests unless they are seriously, deeply considering building their future right there on that exact plot of dirt. Before we dive deeper into what this means for the future of our team, I want to take a quick pause. Look, we put an incredible amount of hard work, long hours, and genuine dedication into producing deep dive documentaries like this for you. Every single subscription we receive acts as a massive wave of motivation for us to keep grinding and bringing you the truth about our team. If you appreciate what we do, please take 1 second right now to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, share this video with your fellow Bears fans, and leave a comment down below. Let's keep growing this incredible community together. Now let's get right back to the evidence. Bears team spokesman Scott Hagel, the Senior Vice President of Public and Governmental Affairs, confirmed the drilling operation that very same Saturday. And here is the part that should make every single Bears fan sit up completely straight in their chair. The team's official statement noted that they already have an excellent option in place, and they are simply continuing to evaluate additional parcels of land in the Wolf Lake region to ensure they place the stadium and the surrounding district in the absolute best possible spot to serve all of Chicagoland. Think about the weight of those words. They already have a strong option. Now, they are testing a second, potentially even better option within the exact same general area. This is not a front office starting a search from scratch because a plan failed. This is an organization performing the final, rigorous due diligence on the finishing touches before they officially lock in the exact coordinate of their new home. Multiple outlets have reported that the excellent option they referred to almost certainly points back to the Lost Marsh golf course site, which has been the centerpiece of the original Hammond proposal for months now. This Wolf Lake Terminal's testing isn't a desperate plan B born out of a sudden panic. It is an expansion of their footprint. It's the team trying to find the single most perfect patch of earth before they commit billions of dollars to the project. If you look at the body language of the officials on the ground in Indiana, it tells you absolutely everything you need to know. Hammond Mayor Thomas McDermott has been playing his cards incredibly close to his chest in public. He isn't out here running victory laps or spiking the football quite yet, but when reporters push him into a corner, he keeps repeating the exact same message. He expresses total, unwavering confidence that the Bears are coming to Indiana. That is not the kind of empty confidence a politician fakes just to get a cheap headline. That is the tone of a man who has been on the phone constantly with decision-makers behind closed doors. Then you look at Indiana Governor Mike Braun, who has been speaking about this for weeks with absolutely zero hesitation. After the Bears board voted unanimously to focus their attention on Hammond, Governor Braun pointed out that this major shift came after 6 long years. 6 years of what he openly characterized as a totally deaf ear from the Illinois governor, the state legislature, and the city administration of Chicago. That is not a politician being politely optimistic about a vague possibility. That sounds like a man who knows the handshake has already taken place in private, and he is simply out there building the public narrative ahead of the formal announcement. So, how on earth did the most storied historic football organization in Illinois history end up here, drilling holes into the ground of a completely different state? Let's trace the timeline, because it explains the frustration perfectly. The Bears bought the land at Arlington Park back in 2021. That means 5 full years of trying desperately to make something work within the borders of Illinois. Round after round of grand stadium proposals, bitter public funding fights, and endless property tax disputes that went absolutely nowhere. The spring legislative session in Illinois wrapped up on June 1st of this year with absolutely zero stadium legislation passed. No deal, no framework, no viable path forward. And the very next day, the Bears Board of Directors voted unanimously to advance their plans in Hammond. Unanimously, not a split vote, not a hesitant discussion. Every single person on that board looked at half a decade of Illinois political gridlock and said, "It is time to move." That tells you the real conversation and the final decision-making had almost certainly already concluded long before that legislative session officially failed. The public vote was just the confirmation of a reality that had already been settled. Now, to be completely fair, there are still some Illinois legislators scrambling with frantic last-minute alternative ideas. We've heard talk of a state representative pushing the Southworks site on Chicago's south side as a total Hail Mary option. But with all due respect to that idea, my friends, that train has completely left the station, picked up massive speed, and is already crossing the state line. The Bears have months of intense, expensive due diligence invested in Hammond. They have drilling equipment physically in the dirt right now. No last-minute op-ed or 11th-hour press conference is pulling this freight train back onto the Illinois tracks. Let's address the elephant in the room, because some people have raised very real, valid concerns about the Wolf Lake area being heavily industrial. It's a completely fair point. This region has a deep industrial history, and there is even a known Superfund cleanup site nearby from an old metal smelting operation. But that is exactly why this geotechnical testing is so critical. This isn't a publicity stunt. It answers the hardest technical questions directly. load-bearing capacity, groundwater interference, bedrock depth, and whether there is any lingering contamination from decades past. If those lab results come back clean, the Bears have an undeniable green light to move into detailed planning. The fact that they are actively drilling right next to a site they already love tells me they aren't bracing for bad news, they are confirming the good news. So where does this land? My genuine read on the situation is that an official Hammond announcement drops before training camp opens. Mayor McDermott has stated publicly that an announcement could happen very soon. Governor Braun has reportedly been in contact with the organization roughly twice a week for around 6 months now. You do not maintain that kind of tight communication rhythm on a deal that is up in the air. You maintain that rhythm when you are finalizing the fine print. What genuinely weighs on me as a fan isn't the zip code. Hammond is roughly 30 minutes from the Loop. Lake Michigan doesn't stop being Lake Michigan just because a state line runs through the water. The navy and orange doesn't fade because the stadium sits a few miles to the east. Over a century of Chicago Bears history does not get erased by moving across the border. But the part that stings is that the city of Chicago truly deserved to keep this team. And if the politicians representing that city couldn't finalize a deal in 5 years, that historic failure is going to echo for generations. Indiana had the legislation ready. Indiana showed real, passionate commitment. Indiana has actual drilling equipment in the ground right now. Illinois mostly had talking points. You tell me who wins that fight. Let's shift gears, because this next story is happening right inside Hallis Hall, and it is frankly infuriating if you care about building a long-term championship contender. There is a contract clock running right now on Jervin Dexter Sr., and from where I'm sitting, General Manager Ryan Poles is letting it tick way too loudly without taking action. Here is the situation in plain terms. Dexter is heading into the final year of his rookie contract, a deal worth right around $6.7 million total. That number is hilariously below market value for the player he is actively becoming. According to recent reports from league insiders, the growing expectation in NFL circles is that the Bears are at risk of losing Dexter to free agency in the spring of 2027, where he could command a massive contract north of $25 million a year on the open market. And the reason that prediction carries so much weight is simple. As of right now, the Bears have not engaged in any meaningful, real extension conversations with him. Let's look at the tape, because his value is undeniable. In the 2025 season, Dexter finished with 7 quarterback sacks, second on the entire roster only to Montez Sweat's 10. He racked up 38 total quarterback pressures, 25 hurries, and posted a pass rush grade of 72.7. That placed him in the top 20 among all 134 qualifying interior defensive linemen across the entire NFL. That is a solidly, undeniably above-average number. And on the open market, an above-average interior pass rush threat is worth an absolute fortune. But there is a catch with Dexter, and we have to be honest about it. He is a two-sided coin right now, and the other side of that coin is a real problem. His run defense grade sat at a brutal 44.0, ranking 107th out of 134 qualifying players. In practical terms, our defense gave up an average of 5 yards per carry to opposing rushing attacks last season, and Dexter was part of that struggle. You have a player who can rush the passer at an elite financial tier, but who remains a liability against the run within the scheme. That is exactly the profile that a front office trying to build a Super Bowl window around a young quarterback cannot pay absolute top of market value for unless that weakness gets corrected immediately. So why hasn't Ryan Poles started these conversations? I see 3 real possibilities. First, money is tied up elsewhere. The Bears committed nearly $43 million over 3 years to veteran defensive tackle Grady Jarrett before the 2025 season. Jarrett is now 33 years old, carries a heavy cap hit of $13.5 million in 2027, and finished last season with just 1.5 sacks. That is simply not the dominant version of Grady Jarrett the Bears thought they were buying. If Chicago releases him before the 2027 league year, that freed-up cap space could easily fund Dexter's extension. But Poles might be waiting to see what Jarrett looks like this season before pulling that trigger. The second possibility is the depth behind him. The Bears spent a 6th-round pick in the 2026 draft on Jordan Vandenberg, a defensive tackle out of Georgia Tech with great athletic traits but a lot of developing to do. Multiple reports indicate he has been struggling through this offseason. That kind of unproven depth is not a solid enough foundation to let your second-best pass rusher just walk out the door. The third possibility, and the one that bothers me the most, is that Poles is simply waiting to see what the 2026 season looks like before committing to a hard number. I understand the conservative logic. If Dexter goes out and racks up 10-plus sacks while fixing his run defense, the decision is easy. But here is the trap. If you wait until January of 2027, you are no longer setting the price. You are reacting to a market that other, desperate teams have already driven sky high. You almost never win bidding wars on players you should have locked up quietly in the offseason. My take is simple. Poles needs to open that conversation right now. Dexter knows his worth. His representation recently shifted to a high-powered, incredibly well-connected agency, which tells you the player is preparing for serious negotiations, whether those happen in Chicago or somewhere else. The top interior defensive linemen in this league are clearing $25.5 million a year. If Dexter explodes in 2026, that price tag is soaring out of reach. Our defense ranked 29th in total yards allowed last season. Let that sink in. A defense facing those challenges cannot afford to let homegrown pass rushing talent walk away because the front office was slow to start the paperwork. Ryan Poles has built a great reputation, but on this issue, the clock is ticking loudly. Let's close this out on something that has me genuinely fired up about where this offense is heading, because it is not all doom and gloom. There is a recent feature from Sports Illustrated that placed wide receiver Rome Odunze on a list of third-year targets primed for a monumental career year. The projections are massive, more than 70 receptions, over 1,300 receiving yards, and double-digit touchdowns in 2026. If those numbers hit, it puts Odunze firmly in the conversation as a top-tier wideout in the NFC. Let me walk you through why that projection is incredibly realistic. His raw 2025 stat line of 44 catches, 661 yards, and 6 touchdowns across 12 games looks ordinary on paper. But those numbers came while he was playing through a painful stress fracture in his foot, an injury he incredibly gutted out through a major chunk of the year before missing the final 5 regular season games. When a wide receiver plays through a foot injury, the very first thing that vanishes is the ability to create explosive separation. Every sharp cut and push off the line gets completely dulled. But look at what a healthy Odunze did in the first 4 weeks of last season. 20 receptions, 296 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That production made him statistically the third highest producing wide receiver in the entire NFL during that stretch. And Caleb Williams wasn't just feeding him easy screen passes, he was finding him on contested, deep targets down the field. Odunze's average depth of target ranked 7th highest in the league. He is not a conservative slot possession guy. He is a vertical weapon who attacks coverages deep. People look at his 49% catch rate and assume he has inconsistent hands, but he had only 4 drops all year. That low percentage was a reflection of deep ball accuracy issues combined with opposing defenses specifically game planning to take away his favorite routes once they saw his tendencies on tape. We also have to factor in the massive structural shift in our receiving room. DJ Moore's departure opened up a huge vacuum of opportunity. Moore commanded 85 targets last season, and those targets have to be redistributed. With Luther Burden, Odunze, and Colston Loveland leading this depth chart, the target distribution is going to be incredibly competitive. But make no mistake, Odunze is entering this season as a focal point in a Ben Johnson offense. And Johnson has specifically identified Odunze as a priority piece moving forward. Coaches of that caliber don't say things like that to the media unless the playbook already reflects it. Now, the one thing that could hold this back is an uncomfortable pattern from last year that needs to be solved. He had 5 touchdowns in his first 4 games. And then just 1 single touchdown across his next 8 appearances. Defenses adjusted to his deep route tendencies, and we didn't have a strong enough counter adjustment in the second half of the season. For a 1,300-yard season to happen, Ben Johnson must design a much more unpredictable package for Odunze this year, using him on shorter, breaking routes where his yards after catch ability can punish defenses that drop back deep. My realistic projection lands him right around the 1,000-yard mark with 8 to 10 touchdowns, which would still represent a phenomenal career-defining season that establishes him as a true number 1 receiver. If Caleb Williams takes the massive leap in accuracy we all expect, the ceiling becomes completely limitless. What excites me most is that this offense now features Odunze, Burden, and Loveland together. Defenses cannot game plan for all 3 without leaving someone completely open to feast. That structural multiplicity is something this franchise simply hasn't possessed in a very long time. Before we sign off today, I want to remind everyone watching that we put immense passion, hours of research, and dedication into creating these breakdowns for our community. Docu-series like this take a toll, and every single subscription provides the motivation we need to keep bringing you the highest quality Bears content on the internet. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, give us a like, share this video with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this Hammond Stadium deal is completely done and dusted, or does Illinois have one final miracle left to keep the Bears at home? And what are your expectations for Gervon Dexter and Rome Odunze this season? I want to read every single one of your responses down below. The ground is being drilled in Indiana, the contract clock is ticking at Hollis Hall, and a fully healthy Rome Odunze is about to remind the entire football world why he belongs at the top. We are standing at one of the most fascinating crossroads in the history of this franchise. The stadium situation might be frustrating, but the future on the field is bright. Bear down, family. I'll see you in the very next video.